And this is Andrew, and we are going to talk about your real estate related questions. So every single day, we actually 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we try to cover a different topic. Today is going to be about a bunch of questions that you either asked through the email, you asked through the Facebook group. So I'm going to have Jennifer go through the questions and we'll cover them. As we begin, remember the real estate happy hour, which is coming up, and that is in Chicago on 1351 West Addison Street at the 23rd at D'Agostino's Pizzeria, right? D'Agostino's Pizzeria. So that's what it is. So make sure you're there, join, be a part of the community, and it is a ton of fun. So show up, and this time Blake is going to cover specifically the secrets that successful wholesalers won't tell you. Like, what is it behind the scenes? What is it like? When are the wins? What are the losses? How do you really build a business of doing wholesales? So this will be a fun event, and go to it, get some pizza, get a drink or so, and then hang out and talk about how do you build a real estate business? What are the insider secrets? What are the how do you hire maybe your first assistant? How do you hire your first person to go out and look at deals for you if you're not able to do that? Maybe you're good at marketing. Maybe you're not good at necessarily going out and talking to sellers, right? How did Blake do that, and how do other wholesalers do that? So that's what that event is going to be about. Make sure you're a part of it. We're going to remind you from our end, but you make sure that you show up. So having said that, Jennifer, let's get started. And also, if you're not a part of the Burr Cashflow Investors group yet, you're just watching this live, make sure you become a part of it and invite your friends, invite your family. We have a bunch of kind of prizes that we give away. This time it's going to be a ticket for two, up to $2,000 in value. So basically 2 airline tickets we're giving away. The last prize we gave away was a cruise for two. Ms. Amal and her husband won that. And the one before, it was a full set of appliances. So we'll see who wins next. And this is supposed to be a fun thing we all participate in. As you invite your friends, as you invite your family, other fellow investors, right, you get that many more chances because your name is entered into the drawing that many more times, as well as your friends. So having said that, question number one. You want to get started?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So the first question. I'll just speak loud. So the first question is right here that we have. How do I find the best investment property loan? My friend is a mortgage broker, and he says the best loan is a regular residential loan. I am self-employed, and his company turned me down because I cannot show 2 years of 1099 income.
Okay, so let's just deal with it one thing at a time. You can hear me in your headsets?
No, I can hear you right here.
You can hear me here. Okay. We just want to make sure that everybody's able to hear us online. So, okay, you can?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is that, well, what is the best type of investment loan? And this particular person has a friend that's a residential mortgage broker, and that person says that, hey, the best type of loan to do is a residential loan, right? And she said she got turned down for 1099, right? So basically, what's the situation in this? So number one, let's understand just basically what are the types of loans that are available for buying a rental property. You have a residential loan that you can do to buy a rental property. Now, generally, if you're going to do a residential loan, they're going to make you put down 20%, unless you're doing a Burr strategy, which is buy the property, rehab the property, rent the property, and refinance out, and you have 30% equity, right? The advantage of a residential loan is you get really good rates. It's a 30-year fixed loan. Now, the problem is this in today's market. Used to be that if the commercial loan was at, let's say, 6%, you could get a residential loan 4.7. That's why people used to do residential loans. The problem with a residential loan is this, that even though it's a good loan, there's nothing wrong with it, it's based on you qualifying and then the property qualifying. Right? So this is important to understand. You may have a phenomenally good property, but if you don't qualify then what's going to happen? They're going to reject you. In this case, this person has excellent credit. The property that she's doing is phenomenal. The problem is she has a 1099. She can't show 2 years worth of income, even though she had income. She's self-employed at this point, and she's writing off a lot of her expenses. She's writing off a lot of income. And so guess what happens? The residential lender turned her down. For somebody like this, and actually for most investors in today's market, right? You can do a commercial loan where all they want to know is what is your credit score, as long as your credit score is decent, meaning 650 or up, and you, as long as the property qualifies, that's it, right? They don't ask you for your taxes. They don't even ask you, in fact, did you file the taxes or not? It is a property-based loan. It is not based on a personal on a person, it's based on the property. So they're underwriting the property. All they want to make sure, the only reason they check credit is because they're like, hey, is this a person that pays, right? You don't have to have perfect credit history, but of course you need to be a person who pays their bills, right? You're not one of those people who just doesn't pay and is basically runs away with people's money. That's all they want to make sure. But otherwise, you don't need income to show income. You don't need to have your taxes filed. So what makes sense is, for most people in today's market, it makes sense go with commercial. Why? Because it's quicker. The rates are not that much different, because on a residential loan, a lot of times they'll charge points, closing costs, all those kind of things, and it's harder to qualify for it. Now, for some individuals, right, where if you can show income, if you can show everything, and you're buying a larger property, meaning you're buying a 3-unit, 4-unit, then it makes sense to do it residentially. So it should be a strategic choice. You should not always do it residentially. So in Mastery, what we say is, if you want to scale up fast, meaning in 1 year, 2 years, you want to buy 10, 15, 20, 30 properties, you're not going to be able to do it residentially, right? I've never seen anybody in Mastery, right? Even I can't do it. Why? Because every time I do a residential loan, guess what's going to happen? I'm only allowed 9 if I have a loan on my personal residence. Now, I don't have a loan on my personal residence, so I would be able to do 10 of those. But every time, guess what's going to happen? They're going to pull a credit every time. You can't have 10 credit pulls for a mortgage in a year, right? That's not going to work. So that's why, in this case, it does not make sense. She should go commercially, either with a small bank. In her case, she should go with a somebody like National RE Funding, and contact Harry, and he'll be able to do the loan. Question number 2.
The second question is, I bought the property using the 257 formula.
Okay.
Now I have 3 of them paid off. I want to start buying more houses. Should I sell them? I would have over $500,000 in net profit.
Okay, so this happens to be somebody specifically from Mastery, and they've had a huge gain, right, in these properties. On an average, these properties were bought all-in cost, meaning purchase and rehab, was somewhere around $90,000 on these on the first 3 properties had. It's somewhere in that ballpark, 90 to 100,000, right? Today, those properties are worth 280, 290 a piece. Right? Now, it's interesting because think about this, right? In this particular person's case, they have a total of 12 houses, and the first 3 are completely paid off. So they've had a tremendous amount of gain, and they went the other day to the accountant, and the accountant's like, oh my God, you have all these properties paid off. Why don't you just sell it? But they're like, well, I don't want to sell it because I like the cash flow income. They're like, well, you can buy more, right? Now, guys, think about this. So if you have a goose that lays a golden egg at the end of every month, right? And you have family coming over for Thanksgiving, you don't say, well, I'm going to take the goose and chop the neck off and then cook that goose for a Thanksgiving dinner, right? Because that would be silly. You take the eggs that are golden eggs to the market, you sell those and because most of the geese don't lay golden eggs, right? You don't sell a property that's making you money hand over fist. The other part of it is this, that if he sells, in this particular case, 3 properties, that's $500,000 in gain. He's already depreciated the properties quite a bit over all these years. Now what's going to happen is that, boom, immediately, he's going to get a hit of close to $100,000 in this case, if not a little bit more, in terms of taxes, because that gain is going to get recaptured, right? Depreciation is going to get recaptured, and you have a huge, massive gain on so it makes absolutely no sense. So what I would do is this, that I would basically take the properties and I would do either two things. Either just refinance the money, because if you refinance, let's say in this case, he can refinance close to, I think it's about, so 250 times 3 is going to be what, 750 about. It's actually, the value is probably closer to 300 on these properties, but let's just assume 250, right? So 250, so even let's just say he refinances 200, 200, he can get 600,000 out, right? Completely tax-free, completely tax-free. Now, some people are going to say, but Andrew, now he has a mortgage on the properties. So here's how I would do it. Instead of, if you don't want to refinance the whole thing out, I think in his case, it makes sense to do it because he can go double down and buy another 10, 12 properties with that 600,000 base, right? He buys it, rehabs it, again, refinances it, pays the money back, right? Or what I would do is this. I would basically open a line against that 600,000, borrow the money to buy the property and rehab it, refinance it, pay the money back, borrow it again. So you're basically borrowing it from your own properties and you're building a bigger portfolio. It does not make sense at all to sell these properties. Now, the only thing that makes sense is if you decide to do a 1031 exchange, which is you do a stalker exchange, as it's called. You do a 1031 exchange, don't touch that money, let it go to the 1031 company. And then from there, you buy another property equal to or greater than in value. It can be one property, it can be two, it can be four, but it absolutely does not make sense to sell these properties at all whatsoever, period. So either you refinance it or set up a credit line against it or do a 1031. Next one.
Okay. So the next question is, should I be buying my first investment property in my name or my business name?
Okay, great question. So this is a question that comes up all the time and confuses and creates a lot of confusion. So guys, think about it this way. A lot of times people will look at it from perspective of, well, you know, there is a, if I buy a property in my name, there is a chance of, what if I get sued? What if something happens, right? And this is the reason why a lot of times people are like, well, I'm going to buy it in a LLC or in a company. That is not the reason why you should buy it in an LLC or a company. The reason why you should buy it is you should look at it even more strategically. It's not just about the liability, because you can cover your liability in terms of putting a, you already have $1 million policy, right? Every rental property we buy, it has a $1 million liability policy, right? And if you want to, you can put a bigger liability premium on it, pay a little bit more premium, put a bigger liability coverage on it. But that's really should not be your only reason. The reason why you should do it is you should look at it, am I looking at this as a business? If I'm looking at this as a business, strategically, it makes sense for me to put it in a S Corp, or most of those rental properties go into an LLC. So if it makes sense, meaning if you want to scale quickly, then you buy it in an LLC because it's easier to get those loans done, to refi out. It's easier to do that, right? That doesn't mean 100% times it's the best strategy to go, but a lot of the times it makes more sense. Now, in another case, I'll give you guys an example. If somebody's buying a property where it's a 4-unit building, right? It has a higher mortgage. You can get some strategic advantages by going to a residential lender. And then in that case, you buy it in your personal name. So it's going to depend, what is the overall strategy? Don't do it just because of, oh my God, somebody's going to sue me. For that, you have proper insurance. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't, like once you own 4, 5, 6 properties, you should move them from your name and make sure you get title coverage into a LLC to begin with, right? It just basically separate. A lot of times people will confuse asset protection versus asset segregation, right? These are two separate things. When you have an LLC, right, it segregates the asset. It does not protect it. Protection is based on insurance on it, right? So just please understand this, that by putting a property in an LLC, think about it as you put it in a different vault, you lock the vault, and you don't share the key with anybody. It is contained within that vault. So next question.
Okay, next question. So here we go. I am buying a property for $380K. The rehab budget is $32K. I think that I can sell for $590 according to the agent. It's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, almost 3,000 square feet. Also has 300 square feet in basement that is still needs to get finished.
300.
300 square feet?
No, it should be 1,500, right?
1,500.
Yeah, because if it's a 3,000 square foot house, then it should be 1,500 square feet.
Okay, 1,500 square feet in the basement that needs to get refinished. It needs a little bit of work. So does this deal make sense?
So this person had sent the address, right? So this was somebody that comes to the RIA, and this was a question that came up. So she wants to buy a property for 380. I was just quickly looking at the math. Our math genius is sitting in the room over there. His name is Joe, minus. So this is a funny property because the reason is this. So the way she did the math, and I kind of applaud her for doing the math at least, right, is this. So what she did is she took 590, and she's heard me talk about the 70% formula minus rehab. So she took 590,000, and then you want to write that on there, Ms. Jennifer?
Okay.
That way, so that everybody will visually kind of get to see the numbers. It's right there. No. Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, 590. Okay.
So 590,000, right? Times 0.7.
Okay.
So, and then once you write it, move away from the board. That way people can see it.
Okay.
590 times, I'm putting Miss Jennifer on the spot.
Oh.
So that equals 413, right? So far she did a good job. Now, 413 minus the rehab number.
35K?
So her number is 35K, right? 32 or 35? What was her number? 32.
Oh.
32. So she came up with, I mean, that should come up with about, what is it? 413
380.
minus 32, right? So she came up with, I mean, it should be about 381, right? 381. So what is she buying this particular property for? She's buying a particular property for 380,000 bucks. And this is important because she did this correctly. Here's the problem. Now think about this, right? And this is where things go wrong. It's a 3,000 square foot property. So it's probably, I mean, I know the address of the property. So it's a 2-story house. It's a rather large house, large box, right? 1,500 square feet, 1,500 square feet. You have 5 bedrooms. You have 3 full baths. She wants to finish the basement, and the house is outdated, and she's going to rehab the entire property for $30-something thousand, right? For 32,000 bucks. That's what the mistake is. The number she did was correctly. The problem was the rehab amount. And guess how she came up with 32,000 bucks? The wholesaler told her, oh my God, I can get this done for 25. So she said, well, no, I think it's going to be 35. Right? Guys, this property at the right number is a phenomenally good deal. Right? Problem is that rehab number is not realistic. Minimum rehab on a property of that square footage is going to be about minimum is going to be 60. In this particular case, without finishing the basement, it's going to be $85,000, right? So the real number on this is not this number. The real number is 413 minus $80,000. So if I take 413 and I subtract 80,000 out of it, 80, it's going to be $333,000, right? It's $333,000. That is the real number in terms of what this particular property should be bought for. So this is a person that I know she's not going to like me saying this, but no, this is not a good deal. This property, and just for your information, I mean, sometimes it's kind of hard to burst somebody's bubble because this person is super excited. And this property's been around the block, right? And 3 times in Mastery, we have turned it down. The last time we turned it down, the number was 375, right? That number, we turned it down to that number. So apparently this person is targeting somebody who's new. So please, I would suggest do not buy this property at all whatsoever, period. Not at that price. At this price, anywhere close to it, all day long. 100% will make sure that you end up with a loan because you will make a lot of money, but not at the price that you're buying. You're overpaying for the property. Okay, so now let's look at the next question.
Okay. So let me it was making an echo, so I muted it. Okay, so the next question. I have a wholesale deal, which is a 3-unit property in Little Village. I have sent all the details to Mastery Help. I am looking to buy this from the wholesaler, and the wholesaler wants $10,000 check upfront made out to his name or his company name. He does not want an attorney or a title company holding the check. I've heard Andrew talk about not giving a check to an individual or a company. I don't want to lose the deal. What should I do?
So guys, think about this, right? If I gave you like a bundle of money, like, right, let's just say it's $10,000, right? If I gave it to you, right, I just gave you cash, and it's me and you took the cash, you put it in your pocket, you go spend it, do whatever you want with it, right? Guess if I go, well, I gave you cash and you go spend it. What can I do about it, right? Unless I'm not in the baseball bat business, the meaning I'm not in the mob business. So basically, unless I take a baseball bat to you, right? If you decide not to pay it, what am I going to do? How am I going to prove that what was the money borrowed for? You could even said, hey, Andrew just decided I was a nice guy. He just gave it to me. And he just gave it to me, so I just kept it. Right? He just wanted to help. Guess what? Now he wants it back. I don't have it to give. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing absolutely that I could do about it, because you could just say, hey, you never gave it to me, right? Or you could claim you gave it to me for something else, services rendered, whatever the services are. And the problem is that exact same thing. In this particular case, right, if you give a check to a wholesaler, let's say their name is Joe Martin, right? Let's just say that's their name as Joe Martin, right? So you gave a check to Joe Martin's name, or you gave a check to Joe Martin Unlimited LLC, whatever it is. The problem is this, that number one, do you know that Joe Martin actually has any interest in the property? He says he does, right? He says he does. Like they have, if you go on Zillow, a lot of times you'll see properties which people are trying to rent for way under market. And a lot of people have gotten scammed by that people will take money on properties they don't even own. And guess what happens? Now the person who paid them the money is like, well, I gave you a security deposit for XYZ property. And guess what happens? The guy that was in between, they just disappear, right? In this case, if you give a check to a wholesaler to their name or to their business name, tomorrow they can just disappear on you. They can close their account, right? Or they can just say, hey, the company is no longer in existence, whatever the case may be. Good luck ever collecting that money. Never, 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 ever give a check, cashier's check, cash, whatever, to an individual or to their LLC, unless you just know it's a big company, you know them, you know reputation, you know 100% for sure. What I would highly suggest is call Gina, right? Call title company, call Fidelity, and have the check held over there, right? So the way I would handle this particular situation is say, hey, listen, I would love to give you the check. It's not a problem from my end. It's just the damn attorney won't let me do it, right? Because this person, she's like, oh my God, I don't want to lose it. What if I lose it, Andrew, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, if it's a legit wholesaler, right, have them call us. We'll be happy to help you, because this person happens to be from Mastery, and we're happy to help, right? Let's at least find out if the person even has the property under contract. Who knows? It's a vacant property. They may have shown somebody a vacant property. I mean, anybody can go in a vacant property, and they're like, oh yeah, I have it under contract, and I can let you have it, but why don't you give me the check? How do you know that I have it under contract, right? And if I just write up a contract, what's the proof? So what is important is third party, a fiduciary, meaning somebody who has been licensed by the state and has a trust account, right? This is a legal matter, will hold the money for the benefit of the two parties according to the contract. They have no interest in it, right? The attorney has no interest in it. They're holding it in their trust account. A title company holds it in its trust account, and that is the right way to do it. So please do not absolutely give the check for $10,000 because we have seen people lose it and then there's nothing you can do. So please be careful.
Okay. The next question, you want the rehab questions?
Mhm.
So the next question is, how do we vet contractors? It's a two-part question. And how do we get the average itemized labor and material costs?
Okay, so, oh my God. So this is we could have a whole meeting on this. We have a meeting coming up, right? We have a specific meeting coming up where what we will do is at this particular meeting, when is that meeting? Do you know?
Thursday. This Thursday.
Oh, this Thursday. Okay. So we're going to have Matt Nolan come in and we'll do a breakdown, right? As we would do in Mastery, we'll take one house and we'll show you all the pictures before and after, and we'll do a breakdown of what I personally paid in terms of the rehab, in terms of where I think the cost should be a bit lower, where I think I did a great job with the numbers, where I think, oh my God, I messed up, right? Or I shouldn't have paid as much. So we'll do a material and a labor breakdown. But let me go back to the first question, because so there's a handout that we have that breaks it down. There are about 300 different items on there in terms of what should you be paying for material, what should you be paying for labor, right? So we have that, and if you're going to the next 3-day, make sure you grab that. During the meeting, Lori will have that, and you can grab it from her. It's a PDF, and then every time before you pay for it, so I'll give you a perfect example. The other day, we did a house where we had 11 windows, and we had a patio door, right? So the contractor sends me a bid on it. And so how do I compare that? Now, how do I know what should I be paying? So we know generally you should be paying for a average size window and labor. So material and labor, we should be paying somewhere between $275 before the prices went up to today, somewhere about $310. So if I have an average size window, right? Normal, a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger is okay. But average size, not windows that are 8 foot big, right? So average size window, so it's about $310 or so times 11. So how much is that? That's $3,400, right? Now, I'm not going to tell this to the contractor, but I know that number. Plus a patio door, because initially when he sent me a quote, his quote was $4,500. I was like, it should be $42. Then he's like, man, I got 11 windows and I got a patio door. Of course, a patio door is going to cost more than it's going to be a window. Plus, I want him to put the wrapping outside, right? The aluminum wrapping outside to make it look nice and clean. And I want to put insulation so that there's no draft coming in the window. So I want the entire thing done, and I want the old windows taken out. So think about this. We're at $3,400 here, right? His quote was somewhere around $4,500, I believe I said, right? Yeah, somewhere around there. So including a patio door, generally, if you go to Home Depot, Menards, whatever it is, right? What does a patio door cost? $600-$700? Actually, today, it may be even $850, $900. So actually, the price he's charging me, right? Because if I put another $800, so he's only charging me a couple $100 to install the patio door, right? It was a really, really good price. So when I questioned him, he immediately came back. He's like, hey, man, I'm paying this per window, this, and I'm trying to make about $1,100. That's only fair, right? About $75 to $100 per window install, plus he's taking all the old windows. The junk is not left at the property. So, and got it done in 1 week, right? So big shout out to Luis from Mastery. He's the one who got it done. So that's how you think about it. That what is the cost? What does it, same thing with the roof. I'm getting a roof done in Burbank, right? And when I had the guy go over there, he's like, well, what are the squares on a roof? Meaning how much material is going to be needed. So on that particular roof, it's going to be about, I think, 15 squares, right? So 15 squares. So 15 squares plus you add about 10% or so to it. So times, so 10% is going to be basically another, another 2. So about put it somewhere around 17 squares times whatever the roof rate is for him, right? So I always tend to be on the cheaper side because obviously I want the jobs done at a great price, right? The roofer may say a little bit more. So when he gave me the price, I knew what I should be paying ballpark. We were apart by about $600. So he's like, but man, I'm going to also put a kit on your chimney, right? I'm going to put a chimney where they're going to flash it, we're going to, whatever that kit is, right? That seemed fair to me because I would have to get that done. And he's like, if there are 3 pieces of plywood that need to be changed, a lot of times around older roofs, the flashing, is not done properly. There may be that can come up. So he's like, Andrew, I'm going to do that for you for a great price. I'm like, okay, done deal. How do I know? I'm not a roofer, but I know what an average bundle of roof sells for. Right? I know approximately what do I need. I need some nails. I need some flashing, meaning I need some aluminum, which is called ice and water shield, right? And I need some felt paper, right? Those are the general things that I need. That's material, and then we add labor to it. Now, understand that you may say, oh my God, Andrew, they're charging you $100 an hour to do this. Well, because roofers in Chicago work generally, there are certain days they're going to be off. But guess what happens with insurance? Insurance got to be carried throughout the year. What about workman's comp, right? These are things you have to think about. So at the next meeting, we're going to do an exact breakdown on one property for you with Matt, and we'll talk about how does he charge as a GC, general contractor, and then how do we get it done on time and on budget. So make sure you log in to that particular meeting or show up here. Show up in the office so you can network with a bunch of other people and get to learn.
Okay. One more question. Okay, so the last question that we have here is, what is the best way to remove smoke damage? Thanks.
Okay, so this question I'm going to leave it up to, I'm going to have Matt Nosel answer this question for you. Here's why. I don't do too many burnt properties, right? There are a lot of people like that do burnt properties, and it's not that difficult to get rid of the smoke smell because it's different when a smoker smokes in a house, right? You may have seen if you've rehabbed a lot of properties, there's like literally tar, right, on the walls. And literally, you won't believe this, right? Literally, you have to take soap to the wall and just get all that scum off, or because that smell does not go away, right? With doors, with a lot of that kind of stuff, you just have to end up replacing those because that wood absorbs that smell. Windows, like I've literally seen windows that are yellow, and then there's a product that they sell, which we'll talk about during the meeting, that you can, even the vinyl windows need to be really, really, really wiped out properly. The problem is this, when we talk about smoke, is it smoke from a cigarette? Is it a weed smell? Is it cat pee? If somebody has cat pee, somebody had dogs, right? That's not smoke, but that's a strong smell that you have to think about. And or was there a fire, right? For us doing a property right now where there was a fire, extensive amount of fire damage, that is a little bit different. That's why I'm going to have Matt Nosel cover that, because if I said I was an expert about doing fire burnt houses, I generally don't do those because it gets into structural, and I just choose not to do that much work on a property. So I'm going to have that answered during the meeting. Anything else? We're wrapped up for today.
There's one more question, but I don't know if you want to answer it. How long does it take to close through national refunding?
So if you're going through national RE funding, this is going to be dependent. It's going to be 2 things. If it's a property you're buying, meaning you have a contract on a property and you're buying the property, generally that's going to be a little bit quicker. That's turnaround is 3 weeks, assuming you give the paperwork. A lot of times what happens is people will not do the paperwork, and the loan officer calls them time and time and again. And this is, even mastery people are notorious for this. Not all, but some of them. And then they go, Andrew, they never did it. No, they want to earn a commission. The only way they get paid anything, at the end of the day, any loan officer, how do they make a penny? Only way they make a penny, or the underwriter or anybody, is if you close on a loan. A lot of times, guys, you have to be able to give them the paperwork, right? They may need, okay, well, do you have some money in the bank to show that, hey, how are you going to make these payments? Like basic things, right? These are not difficult things to do, right? And even I sometimes, right? everything going on. Sometimes even I delay stuff, right? Hey, I need a lease, right? Those kind of things happen. And so the important part is if you provide what you are supposed to on a purchase of a property, meaning you're doing a fix and flip, or you're going to buy a property, you're going to keep it for you're going to rehab it, you're going to keep it. So you're doing the front end of it that's called a purchase contract, right? On that, your loans are generally done within 3 weeks, generally, right? And that's something that you can get it done because there's an urgency to it. There's a seller, there's a buyer. That's it. On a refinance loan, generally count on a month. I know every lender will say, oh my God, we can get it done in 3 weeks. I've gotten files done in 2 weeks, right? It's not that it can't be done, but generally lenders take a little bit longer on a refinance. It should be easier because now the property is completely fixed up. Think about it. But I'm just telling you the reality behind the scenes is that lenders are like, well, on a refi, it's not as big a rush. On a purchase, people will lose their contract and they will get really mad because they lost the property because the financing didn't get done. Hence, almost all companies, right, tend to but they tend to put more resources towards the purchases, right? Just because the urgency that is involved. There may be an agent, there may be a wholesaler, all that sort of thing. So that's the general thing. So 3 weeks generally for a purchase, generally a month for a refinance. It can be done quickly, especially if it's your second, third property. It can be done. I've done a bunch of them within 2 weeks, but it's like I have to be on it. The appraiser has to be on it. All the pieces have to fit, but it can be done. But 3 weeks for purchase, generally a month for refinance. So, Ms. Jennifer, thank you very much. This was fun. Having said that, guys, if you're not a member of Burr Cashflow Investors, make sure you become a member. Send in your questions. Doesn't matter how silly. The whole point of this is that if you are investing in real estate or if you want to, believe me, at some point, we are all going to make a mistake. I make mistakes, right? That's called being human. The whole point of it is to learn from them, right? Like in this particular example, this is a mistake we can prevent before it happens. Same exact thing with the wholesaler that wants to get, $10,000 paid. I can't even say it with a straight face, to their own name or to their LLC. That's not something you should be doing. Having said that, this is Andrew and Ms. Jennifer. Thank you. And we'll talk to you on Wednesday.